Good morning. My name is Gary Chicory Jr. Today is 21 August 2026. This assignment is tracing the evolution of gas-operated firearms from class FTT 131, Maintenance and Troubleshooting of Firearms. The sources I use for today's assignment is going to be American Rifleman Staff, AR Operating Systems, Gas Impingement versus Piston. AmericanRifleman.com, 13 April 2010. Next is Forgotten Weapons, the Mexican Mondragon. ForgottenWeapons.com, access 20 August 2026. Another one is Forgotten Weapons, the M1908 Mondragon semi-automatic rifle, YouTube, from 24 November 2014. Next is the IQS Directory editorial team, Linear Actuators, Types, Processes, and Design, from IQSDirectory.com, 28 July 2026. And finally, Palmetto State Armory, AR-15 Gas System Guide, palmettostatearmory.com, access 20 August 2026. So in part one, we're going to talk about the gas-operated system of the Mondragon M1908. Now, it was designed by a Mexican artillery officer, General Manuel Mondragon. It was a self-loading, gas-operated rifle with a rotating bolt. The Switzerland company SIG took the contract, and they were the ones designing it or building it. So at the time, the soldiers had a single-shot manual rifle, essentially a bolt gun. So when they fired, they had to pull that bolt back and then push it back forward to load another round. This was very time-consuming, especially when you're getting shot at. And if you have to do it for prolonged periods of time, it started to tire the soldiers out. So in order to help with that, this design used some of that expanding gas from the cartridge to cycle the weapon automatically, creating a semi-automatic rifle. Now, this works similarly to the piston-driven rifles of today. Now, with this design of the rotating bolt, it helped influence the quality of that locking mechanism that we see today. And that also helps with withstanding some of those high gas pressures. So, now in part two, the next system we'll be discussing is the modern-day AR-15, the direct impingement. The historical challenges that this weapon system saw were the fouling from the hot gas dump coming through the gas tube, as well as overpressure was another challenge that sped up the bolt cycle rate, which led to some malfunctions or jams. Some of the improvements that were made was the mid-length gas system. The longer gas tubes created extended dwell times, as well as it lowered the port pressures. This stabilized the overpressure. Also, they used corrosion-resistant materials to reduce the fouling and the rust. Now, there were some trade-offs, though, with this design. And they were that it was lighter and improved accuracy, but those hot gases were dumping directly into the receiver. This increased the fouling in there, and it also dried out your lubricant very quickly, as well as it would wear and tear on those moving parts inside the receiver. So, part three. To me, the most significant challenge still lingering is definitely the carbon fouling that's being pushed directly into that receiver, with the high wear and tear on those components from the high heat gases, as I just mentioned previously. Some logical future developments could come in the forms of electronics or smart electronics, kind of like smartphone. Something like the Pi-Zao electric gas regulators. They measure bolt carrier speed and modify the gas flow instantly to keep the weapon firing smoothly and steadily. A key benefit is there is less felt recoil because it only uses the gases that it needs, so that cuts down on that harsh recoil that you feel. Now, if you look at older firearms made of wood, steel, iron, they're big, bulky, heavy, have smaller capacities, they're slow, manual actions. Now we have lighter, smaller, more accurate weapon systems made of polymer and aluminum. The next step would be a smart gun, but in the aspect of the functionality of the mechanism. Now, the problem is going to be the market demand. The run-of-the-mill, casual, everyday shooter isn't going to want to spend the money on a smart gun for a rifle or pistol that is just going to fire a little bit more smoothly. Competition shooters, on the other hand, may actually want something like that, so they would pay for it. So now on to part four. Why does this matter to gunsmiths? We have been discussing this throughout the classes. The better that you understand the design and the concept, the better you can diagnose the actual problem versus guessing of what's wrong with it. Now, understanding the component relationship is crucial. A lot of the systems rely on timing and gas pressures. So if one or more of the components are working outside of its intended purposes, you'll be able to easily identify that because you know how it's supposed to be working. By knowing the historical and technical knowledge, you can better explain to a customer to help them understand why they should or should not be making modifications to their firearm. Now, when it comes to the safety understanding of it, their evolution is paramount because it lets me know that they've gone through many iterations before the final product was released. Knowing what the maximum and minimum chamber pressures keeps the weapon from blowing up on myself or even my customers. Now, to continue my professional development, I plan on attending different shows and conferences like the NRA annual meeting, going to different trainings. For instance, in September, I'm going to be going to Glock in Smyrna, Georgia for the Glock Armorers course on the Gen 5s, the Vs, and the Gen 6s to help further my knowledge and better my understanding of the firearms.